Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the staff scheduling app for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to this week's Hospitality Meets with me, your host, Phil Street. As we are in the period of time that is affectionately known as Twixmas, I have something a little bit different for you this week. When this show was formed, I wanted to shine a light on the great and good of hospitality, showing all the wonderfully positive stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, whilst also uncovering the amazing stories of those who work within it. Occasionally, a story pops up that just blows you away. So this week, I don't want to give you any tongue-in-cheek openers, as I just felt that wouldn't do today's story any justice whatsoever. Enter Charlie Hodson, owner, until the end of this year at least, of Hodson & Co., the UK's smallest restaurant, and also a proud ambassador of the amazing work that Hospitality Action do. When Charlie reached out to me to see if his story merited a spot on the show, a quick call got me asking whether this show was in fact big enough for his story. Charlie's story transcends hospitality, and he speaks openly about some of the demons that have haunted him throughout his life, leading to multiple attempts at suicide, and fair warning, he talks about that in some detail, so please don't listen if that's something that you're not ready to hear. But please do try, as there are so many important learnings from his journey. You might be asking, why a story of doom and gloom, Phil? That's not what this show is about. Well, as today's story will demonstrate, positivity can be found even in the darkest moments in life. You'll learn so much from this chat, notwithstanding what a top bloke Charlie is for being so open about a very difficult subject, but also just how important the work of Hospitality Action is, and why Charlie is such a proud ambassador for the work that they do even to this day. So grab yourself a brew, take a deep breath and get comfy, and I hope you enjoy. And if you are enjoying the show, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your podcast app of choice. It really makes more difference than I can tell you. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Charlie Hodson.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm alright, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. What's new in your world?
What's new in our world? For me, I'm counting down to the 30th of December when I retire commercially from hospitality after 35 odd years.
Really? Wow. Well, we'll probably get into that then at some point down the fullness of the discussion. I remember you actually, when we met, because there is a bit of a story around all of this, you very kindly reached out to me on Instagram because you were being wonderfully positive about some of the chats that we've had, and then asked if your story might be of interest. And the more I kind of dug into that, the more I was like, absolutely. But then fortuitously, I saw you live at the chef's dinner, the Hospitality Action chef's dinner at the Nobu earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, really, and had no idea of the fullness of your story. So yeah, you're an inspirational character, and I remember you saying then when we met that you were retiring, and I just kind of just went over my head that you were doing that. So yeah, well, I mean, welcome to the show, and glad we got in before you retire from this good industry.
Yeah, I know. It's you I think in our industry you go out for many different reasons. You go out, because you retire because of age, or you come out of it financially and you can no longer going on, or obviously, 3 years ago people were leaving our industry because of lockdown and because they had no choice. But I think for me, at the moment in time, we go out on the 30th of December. We've got a full waiting list, so every single table is booked. And obviously we're the smallest restaurant in the UK, so we open for a table of 2 minimum, up to a table of sort of 18. And I always had this thing in my head, 35 odd years of being in the industry, in and out, should we say, like a lot of us are, working my way up from veg prep, I guess, many, many years ago. And I think a life that's tainted with alcoholism and a real addiction to alcohol that was nearly my killer, I guess, mate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll come into that through the natural course of your journey. But before we do go all the way back to the beginning, just tell the world who you are and what it is that you actually do.
So, my name's Charlie Hodson. I'm a Norfolk boy. We're based up in Aylsham, just north of Norwich, right on the east of our beautiful country.
Lovely part of the world.
Absolutely beautiful part of the world. Foremost and utmost, I'm a chef by trade, and I have been for the majority of my life, mixed with other little avenues of life. And loved it, loved every minute of it, even when I wasn't on, I guess the easiest way to say, even when my mind wasn't in it fully. And to the outside world, everyone thought I loved it, which I did. But then I've struggled with my mental health since I was 14. And during lockdown, obviously, as operators, we could no longer do what we did. We couldn't serve the public with food. We couldn't, as I love to say, our industry is full of passion, it's full of joy. And a chef or anyone involved in our industry, what makes us tick is part of our DNA, being able to cook, being able to serve people, being able to, all the hundreds of aspects that are involved within hospitality within our industry, all that came to an abrupt end in March. So we had to do something else. So we opened a little cheese shop in the middle of this beautiful market town, just north of Norwich. And it was wonderful, no supermarkets are open, no pubs, restaurants are open. And it took us back to the old days of how people shopped. They go to the butchers for their meat, the cheese shop for their cheese, the bakers for their bread. And then sadly, as lockdown started to ease off, and then 3 years later it was all back to normal, so to speak, for most people. The people dissipated, went back to supermarkets, so we had to come up with something else. But during the time we had the cheese room, every Tuesday and a Thursday in the front of the cheese room I'd do a table of 2 and 4, because as a chef you can't stop cooking. Even next year, I jokingly, I say half-heartedly, that I'm retiring on the 30th of December. We're retiring commercially, but that doesn't mean I won't still be cooking in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because you can't take that out of a chef's life, or anyone that's involved in this industry. There's not many people who have been in the industry, most of their life, and then can wake up one day and say, well, actually, tomorrow I'm going to be a roofer. Because, like I say, it's in our DNA. It's what we do. It's what we love. Serving a little bit of joy through plates of food. So, like I said, every Tuesday and Thursday night we served a table of 2 and 4. And then last November, the business just wasn't holding itself as a cheese shop anymore. So we had to reinvent it. So all my friends who'd been coming, and strangers who'd been coming for table of 2 and 4, said, "Oh, we still want to come. Where can we come and eat food?" So we sort of had a quick turnaround in 2 weeks, redesigned the layout, and then invented ourselves as the smallest restaurant in the UK. And since then, we've been fully booked. So we've been nigh on fully booked for a year.
Right, brilliant.
Which is sort of, but then we went to 5 nights a week, so Tuesday through to Saturday, plus dining at home. So I have other chefs who help out doing dining in people's homes on Fridays and Saturdays. And our little space in Norfolk, we've been catering from a table of 2, so you can come in fully bespoke, private dining. And I thought, people might take me up on it. We might do sort of 2 or 3 tables a week, and that'd be great. I might have to keep pushing it out to keep it going. And came as a bit of surprise when we sort of seemed to be fully booked 6 months in advance.
Yeah, that's good marketing though. Marketing yourself as the smallest restaurant in the UK kind of puts the intrigue into people's minds. Oh, I feel like I must go and see this place.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've had, I'd guess, 30% of our business is locally, and the other 65% is from all over the country, from London to Surrey. We have people coming across from the Midlands. But the nice thing about it is, it also spreads the joy a little bit, because when people aren't local, they book into local hotels and Airbnbs and bed and breakfast, and then they'll spend the next day, they'll go to the local pizzeria for lunch, and they'll go to all the little shops. And Aylsham's an enclave of beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little shops in an old-fashioned type marketplace, award-winning. We won the best marketplace small town in the UK.
Wow.
So it spreads that little bit of joy a bit. So it's not just about us. It's never just been about us. Never just been about Hodson & Co. It's much more about the wider audience, and hopefully the people coming here have spent that £5 in another little shop, because that's what it's all about. It's when we go out, I think we tend to think nowadays, oh, you go to your local butchers, well, you've got to spend 30, 40 quid, otherwise it's not worth going there. Well, actually, if everyone went into their local butchers, their local fish merchants, their local greengrocers, how much would that help our local economy? It would help it a hundredfold. It's
Mm.
that's what it's really been about for us, is spreading that little bit of joy of what hospitality brings and spreading it out to the wider audience. And hopefully
Yeah.
other people have profited from that. So absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I love that kind of the community spirit ethos around that, and I totally get it. I understand as well. People's lives are busy, and convenience plays a huge factor in a lot of choices like that. But actually, there's also this kind of I think this general feeling that the butchers is more expensive and the greengrocers is more expensive, but actually, generally, what you get is a higher quality of product. And I've found as well from my local butcher, as an example, it's been a while since I've done this comparison, but maybe Sainsbury's does a lamb leg special for 10 quid or something like that, and you go and buy that lamb leg, and it's tiny, and in the cooking process it just shrinks down so much, and you end up getting, if you're lucky, 7 or 8 portions or something like that out of it. Whereas you go to the butcher and okay, you pay 3 times that, but actually there's barely any reduction in size through the cooking process. And so actually you end up getting more portions of meat. So the economy of scale is actually quite similar. It's just because you feel like you're parting with more money up front. But in actual fact, if you've got the means to store your food in a freezer or something like that, it's still the best way to do it. And you get a better caliber of product, I think.
No, totally. We used to, for years, I was very heavily involved with cookery stages, and we used to do quite a lot with local authorities. One of them we did sort of about 4 years ago, a year before lockdown, was for a local authority. So they gave us the idea of what can you produce in a cookery theatre on stage, mobile cookery theatre in the middle of a wonderful town. We need 5 dishes that you can make for less than £1 that would be what people would get or families would get from takeaways, or like a pizza, like uh, a sausage and egg McMuffin. And it's all these little things that we can make for much less than £1. And one of the ladies said to me, and she explained she was on really low income and she had to feed a family of 6. She said, there's no way that I can go to a farm shop and buy my vegetables, because I can go to a supermarket and I can buy a kilo of carrots or a big cauliflower or lots of Brussels sprouts in a kilo. And my question to her was, so if you buy your 2 kilo bag of carrots, how many of those do you use? And she said, well, we'll use about half, but by the time we go to use the rest of them, they're gone off, so we have to throw them away. So my question to her was, so if you go to a butcher's and buy 10 pieces of bacon and cook it, you'll find that your 10 pieces of bacon from a butcher's will have exactly the same size, nigh on, after they've been cooked. If you go to elsewhere to buy your bacon, which is mass produced, which is packed in loads and loads of water, by the time you cook your bacon, your 10 slices, they'll reduce to the equivalent of 6. So
Yeah.
by shopping locally and supporting locally, not only are you feeding your family better and healthier, you're supporting local farmers, you're supporting local people, you're supporting local economy, but you actually end up having more food, and it's, you have to be careful what you say, because we all need supermarkets in our lives, but therefore we also need our high street to be vibrant, and we need our
Mm.
high street to be alive, because all it will end up will be in empty streets. And you only have to look on the news nowadays throughout the whole of the country, and you'll see high streets that are desolate, that are empty. And
Yeah.
I think that's my big fear. And out of the chef's world, as a human being, that's people's lives as well.
Mm. Absolutely. Don't even get me started on the supermarkets and farmers. That's a whole different ballgame. I've recently gotten behind a campaign driven by I can't remember his surname, but Guy at Riverford Farms, because we're a purveyor of Riverford as a means to get some organic veg into our house, and he's been campaigning to get the supermarkets paying fairly because the British farming industry is on its knees. It's on the cusp of collapse, and a lot of that's driven by the fact that that the supermarkets have, over a long period of time, continually driven down the price. So in actual fact, that 1 kilogram bag of carrots that you're getting in your local supermarket, it's exactly the same principle as fair trade avocados from the other side of the world, except it's happening on your doorstep. People are not getting paid fairly for the work involved in producing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And the prime example of that is milk. You know, but let's not go on to that one, because we could have the longest ever podcast.
No,
We have the
indeed.
smallest restaurant in the UK, but we could end up having the longest ever podcast session.
Yeah, indeed. And this is an upbeat podcast. And we've got into a bit of a rant here, haven't we? But I think, all of these things are really important. And I think as well, and bringing it back to hospitality, all of the supply chain things that we've just discussed there very, very quickly are all very relevant to hospitality as well, in terms of how, where you get your produce from and where you get your the things that you're selling on to and cooking on to for your product. So it's all interlinked, and it's all part of the same thing. It's not just about the consumer and the supermarket, as it were. There's a whole different ball game of things around that.
Yeah, no, very much so. For us, it's all about everything we have from us, or we supply. We try and source within 28 miles of our front door, apart from the obvious things like lemons and limes and things. But our oil is produced 1.5 miles down the road. Our rapeseed oil, our vegetables come from the other side of the road and sourced in Norwich, which is sort of 15 miles down the road. Even to things like black pudding, it's all. And our butchery is from local butchers, and our fish comes from a local fishmonger, and that's part of. Obviously, the main reason is because we want to know exactly where our products come from, so we can talk about them 100% with the knowledge that we know exactly who's produced them, but also because we know it's doing our part to support local, to help local economy. But also, we also know from that we get the best products in the world, right on our doorstep. Like you said earlier about Norfolk being an amazing county. It's the most stunning county for a chef's larder. It's just amazing. I love it.
Brilliant. Right, well, we've completely gone off piste, but I'm going to bring it back, and we're going to go all the way back now to the beginning of your journey. How did you get into hospitality in the first place?
God, by fluke, really. I ended up in London many, many years ago. So I guess to take it back, it's not. Hospitality found me, really. I was quite lost as a soul, and for certain reasons, I couldn't wait to get out of my life that I was in. I learned to drink from the age of 16. I learned to drink amazingly well.
Right.
Amazingly well. Life and soul of the party. Alcohol at that point was as much as my DNA and anything else in the world. And I was a very good drinker. But that stayed with me all the way through till 2016, 2017. So I've been a heavy drinker since 2000, or since 1986. There you go. And I stumbled into hospitality. I stumbled into kitchens at the age of 23, and I've been.
How did that come around? How did the stumbling into to come about?
So I was. My mate was working in a kitchen, and I'd had some issues that I was trying to deal with, and I just wanted to be away, and I wanted to find the world. I think, as we all do as youngsters, we want to get into a new life, and hospitality for me was great because it was surrounded by alcohol,
right?
And everyone used to drink heavily after work. So for me, gosh, that was like putting a child in a sweet shop. So no one had an excuse not to drink after work because everyone in the kitchen went out after work, and we'd stay out till very, very late, get up very, very early, and go do the same thing. It's that sleep repeat syndrome, which many chefs in the 80s went into. And I found very quickly that I could cook. So I went up through the ranks very, very quickly, moving back to Norfolk in 2013 after being all over the world in different jobs and different employment. Never really been a happy soul, though. Been quite a sad soul. not being a very good dad when I was younger, not being a good family member, and I battled all these things. But as a bloke, I thought I was all right. I thought I was gifted, I was clever, I was cocky, I was quite rude. But that wasn't me. That was how the alcohol, as we know, and anyone else is listening, how we know that alcohol affects everything you do, your mood, your tolerance of people, your tolerance of everything.
Mm.
And I moved back to Norfolk in 2010. A couple of years meandered around a little bit, did a little bit of cooking, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Then 2013, I landed an amazing job, which we were honoured in 7 months of getting 2 straight AA rosettes. Took the kitchen up to a really cool, super cool level with massive waiting list and everything else. And I thought that was all my problems answered. I thought that's what it was. I needed something, I needed some accolade that would then make me feel happy. But I still was drinking like a fish. Luckily enough, mate, I've never touched drugs, because I do believe if drugs had entered my life, I'd have been dead a lot earlier than what I'd planned. And all life for me, really, from the age of sort of 16, Phil, was all about finding my way to suicide.
Right. Jeez.
So
Okay.
from the age of 16 to 2017, predominantly most of my daily life had been trying to plan, trying to work out, trying to find the courage, because what other people think. That used to be the saying that if you take your own life, it's a coward's way out. And I can assure anyone who's listening, when you meticulously plan what you want to do with your life, through the act of suicide, that's not a coward's way out. And so that sort of encapsulated my life with the alcohol. It went hand in hand. Alcohol, finding my own peace. Alcohol, finding my. It was this merry-go-round I couldn't ever find a way out of. No matter how I tried, I had a beautiful family, and to the outside world, everything looked like it was beautiful and rosy and great, because you learn to hide things.
Yeah.
So
Was it the was the alcohol the thing that was responsible, do you think, for keeping you in this state of mind whereby suicide was the thing that you felt would bring you the greatest amount of peace?
yeah, absolutely. The suicide was my blanket. Like as a child, you have a little blanket or snuggly or a favourite cuddly toy, doll, whatever, boy or girl, teddy bear, that you take to bed with you, and that is your like a snuggle blanket, I guess we used to call them as kids. But alcohol was my snuggle blanket. Alcohol was the thing that kept me safe, that gave me an amazing power to blanket everything out that had happened to me as a child. It was like the greatest war, and it was the greatest thing that would stop reality from actually emerging. So I didn't have to tell my story, because I'd much rather be known. I'd much rather people know me as Charlie Hodson, really good chef, but he's a pain to be around when he's had a drink. I'd much
Right.
people know that at the time than actually say to people, "Well, actually, hi, my name's Charlie Hodson. I'm dealing with a lot of stuff because of things that happened to me in my childhood that I can't talk about." And that was too hard for me to say up until 2017, because I couldn't imagine sharing that with the world, because I couldn't face up to those things, because I thought they were my fault. And when you blame yourself for 30 odd years of your life, or you think they're your fault, what happened to you as a child and through childhood till the age of 14, there is nothing in the world that can change your mind that it wasn't your fault. So alcohol was my snuggle blanket, is where I went to. It's what protected me from the reality of what had happened to me in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we've spoken about that off microphone, and that's not something we're going to cover today because it's not relevant really to your story. But I suppose its relevance comes in the fact that it was keeping you in this dark place, in the fact that it was keeping you in this, I suppose, this desire that, okay, I kind of can't wait to go and have a drink again, because that's the place that keeps me away from, I suppose, facing up to it, or or dealing with it in some way. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally. I remember used to bollocking younger chefs because they'd come into work and they were clearly still hanging from the night before. And I'd be hanging, but I'd built this innate skill, and no one would know, you know, no one would know I might have had a bottle or 2 bottles before I even started working a day, just to get me through it, just to get me through the crap that I felt 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, ongoing since I was, 14 and trying to deal with it. And all my mates, on good days, would think I was a laughing soul of the party, but it would end up in tears. You'd wake up thinking, God, who have I got to apologise to? How have I embarrassed myself? How have I embarrassed other people around me who I care about, who I love? It becomes such a boring thing in life when you spend most of your time thinking about who you've got to apologise to, whereas now the world is a very different place.
Yeah, absolutely.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
When did it all kind of come to a head? I mean, you said that you meticulously planned your exit. We'll just call it that, for want of a better phrase. Was there a specific moment where you thought, right, that's it now? I need to start planning. I need to start making sure that this is something that I basically end it.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2017, which I think was the year in my life that stands out, I tried to take my own life 2 times within a course of sort of 4.5 months. And obviously, it never came to fruition, but by the grace of God. And, one time we laugh about, after surviving bowel cancer and everything else, I joke and laugh and say that cigarettes a cigarette saved my life, because on the pre-occasion of standing in the middle of a wood at 1:15 in the morning, having everything mapped out, and I thought everything was mapped in my head, so everything was planned. I knew no one would find me till 6:00 in the morning, and I went to have a cigarette, because as a smoker, as an addiction, it's when you haven't got a cigarette, you really, really want one. So I drove, literally, it's about a 3-mile drive back to this garage on a roundabout. And as we all know, when you go to garages and you buy anything, you're very lucky if they say anything more to you than that's £15.90. Thank you very much. You put your credit card in, tap here, and out you go. They never say another word to you.
Yeah.
So I turned up to this garage and bought some cigarettes so I could go back and have a cigarette and then find my own peace, so to speak. And I bought the cigarettes and tapped my card. As I turned to walk away, the cashier, the lady behind the counter, just simply said, "Hope you have a safe journey home."
Right.
And as I walked back to the car, and I thought, what are you doing, mate? A stranger has just said, "I hope you have a safe journey home." And I think that was the first real time in my life, after being loved immensely by lots of people. It was a stranger who didn't know me, who wanted me to have a safe journey home. So I got in the car and that night was finished. And I thought, you've really got to sort yourself out. This is no good, mate. It's not a good place to be in. You've got to find help. But like as always, with anyone else who's really suffering with mental health, at the moment in time, it's forgotten the next day. And you think, well, actually, right, if I stop drinking as much as I do, if I knuckle down, if I find something else in life, and I was already involved with Hospitality Action at this time, and however much I supported them, I still wasn't in my own head place to ask for help. And take it forward, August of that year, another time, and it was a Sunday afternoon, but I'd been planning for a month again. So it'd been like 3 months of what I'd call normality in my head. I'd calmed everything down, calmed my drinking down, everything else. But 3 months later, I found myself again in a place of utter darkness. And I mean utter darkness, where you can't see a way out of anything. And you feel, well, I can't talk about what happened to me as a child. And unless I talk about what happened to me as a child, I'm never going to heal. I'm never going to start to find my way out of the darkness. And that was too painful for me to open that box at the time. So I thought, right, let's try something different. And on a Sunday afternoon, I headed out on a bus with my little Burberry bag that had a nice pair of shorts folded in, a nice T-shirt, a nice pair of polished loafers. Went on the bus specifically so no cameras could pick me up on number plates. I'd found myself in a town with a multi-storey car park, and I'd put a post up on Twitter saying having a lovely time at the beach. We're going for a walk along the beach. One of my best friends had seen it and got concerned and started messaging me, but I knew as soon as I started answering phone calls and messages, someone might try and change my mind from what I'd spent a month meticulously planning to the infinite detail. So I ignored it all. And then I start having numbers from a withheld number. And I thought, who's this? Who's calling? And I don't know why I answered one of the withheld numbers, and it was Norfolk Police, because one of my other friends at the time was an inspector and had been contacted and seen another post that someone else had put up saying they were worried about me. And they were really concerned that I wanted to do myself harm. And I said, no, it's okay. I'm just going for a walk. And, managed to blag them off a little bit. But for some unknown reason, they'd found out how and where I was. And these amazing a WPC and 2 other PCs turned up who stopped me from carrying out my and I was so close, Phil, so close to walking off the side of a multi-storey building. And it absolutely fills me with absolute utter dread. Looking back on those, looking back on that moment in time now, because I know maybe if it was 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. And I look at my life now, and it's still hard, but it's joyful. It's a really beautiful place to be in. And I'm surrounded by beautiful people. I've got an amazing partner. I've got a beautiful son. But all that was tainted by the fact that I couldn't talk about what had happened in my life as a child. But anyway, so cut a long story short, so the police said to me, you can't do this. We can't allow you to do this. So we'll give you a choice. You can come to the hospital with us, and we'll wait for the emergency mental health crisis team to come over. They were about 2.5 hours away. Or we'll section you, because we're that fearful that if we leave you on your own. And I said to him, well, I will. There's nothing in my head that will stop me from wanting to carry out this act of suicide, finding my own peace. So they came and sat me in the hospital until my best mate turned up. And Mark Lewis phoned me, our chief exec. And this lovely WPC had taken my mobile phone because it just didn't stop ringing. All these people phoning up who were concerned. And Mark phoned up, and I told him what was going on. And he said, mate, I'll get in my car, considering Mark lives in London. And we built a really good friendship up through supporting the HA, but he didn't quite realise how poorly I was in my head. And he just said, mate, I'll get in the car and I'll drive up. I'll drive up now. It's Sunday night, I'll drive up. I said, no, it's okay. My best mate's just turned up, and the police are just about to leave, and the crisis team are coming over, so I'm going to talk to them and clear my headspace and hopefully find a path I need to. So, but by the grace of God, I then sought counselling through HA. I went to see a specialist counsellor who was through the police, through Norfolk Police, and I had to make historical sexual offence charges against a family member and all sorts of things. And I had 2 weeks of utter turmoil, but I got the opportunity to face my demons. And so I ended up calling it, and I've been very vocal about it. So I surrounded myself by people I knew who were 100% understood where I was and where I needed to be. And it came under the banner of My Saving Grace, including HA, who were inspirationally beautiful in just listening, and that's the first time I'd got the "We've got you." Whereas before, we hear all these things about charities and saying, we're here for you night and day, 24 hours a day. And that's the first time I really, really understood the "We've got you" bit, that, and they've been by my side ever since. And how lucky I am.
Yeah, God, man. I want to give you a hug. We're doing this virtually and I can't, because I also know we have hugged before and you give the best hugs, man. And I remember when we were speaking about your journey in terms of what did we want to cover and all of the things, and it was as we've discussed before, this is generally an upbeat podcast where we're shining a light on the great and good that happens in the industry, and Hospitality Action is the great and good that happens in the industry, one of the greatest things that exists. So then, sometimes this might be a tough listen for some people to hear your story, but in actual fact, I just think it's essential that people hear it, because they've got you. There's this wonderful body behind the industry, there for people when they need them the most, and to even kind of contemplate how close you came. And for us to not then have this opportunity to talk is actually, I haven't lived your pain, but even just thinking about it there, it was like, God, the sliding doors moments of our lives, it's not worth thinking about. But the wonderful message is Hospitality Action, and what an amazing charity they are.
Absolutely. And I think, and it's an upbeat podcast, but for it to be upbeat for me, we have to tell our story.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to tell our story, because neither of us know out of how many people might listen into this at some point. We never know that one person who might just be sitting there. And always have this thing in my head, and this is also something else I love about HA more than anything else. We can't all change the world, but each of us as individuals, if we can help change one person's life for the better, and that person goes and changes another life, because that's the real magic of charity. And, as they say, charity begins at home. And HA for me is family. It's home. It's where I feel safe. So yeah, we have to talk about the nitty gritty to get the good message, the amazing message out, and HA's message of "We've got you," because it's not just a billboard advert. It's not just a false promise. It's a reassurance that, in our bad times they got us, in our good times they've got us, in our times together, as when we're all at awards and everything else, we're all having a good drink together. And now, you know what, Phil? It's amazing. I can go out now. I used to drink to hide, but now I'll still have the odd drink, and I'll still sometimes get tipsy. But it's the most wonderful feeling being able to have a drink and get up in the morning without a raging hangover, because I'm a social animal. So for me, I love seeing people. I love spending time with them. I love having a quiet drink. But what I love the most is getting up in the morning, not sitting there for 2 hours thinking, with my hand in my head, thinking, "How on earth did I offend last night?"
Yeah. That's really interesting as well, actually, because I'm lucky enough to have not had an alcohol addiction or any other addiction that I'm aware of, maybe apart from podcasting. But and everything that we know as outsiders looking in is that the theory is that when you've had the addiction, is that it? That's it, teetotal for the rest of your life. But it's interesting that you have the level of control to know that actually alcohol was serving you, or serving's probably not the right word, but it was doing what it was meant to do for you in the time that it was, keeping you in your dark place, basically. But now that you've kind of addressed the demons, is that that's not its purpose anymore. It's not there to do that anymore, because you don't need to keep these things hidden away anymore. They're out. People know, and so by doing so, you could almost have a completely different relationship with alcohol. Is that? I'm not a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just coming at this from a logical perspective. Is it fair to say that that's kind of the case with this?
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally. We have a much different relationship. Whereas the fact that alcohol is there is now as a treat that I respect. That I know that I wake up every day and I'll have an amazing cup of coffee and think, right, today this is our jobs for today, this is our life for today, and I don't need to hide anymore. I don't need to, if people don't get it, yeah, I care about it. People don't think, what's happened to me as a past can be that catalyst. That's okay. But I know.
Yeah.
The people around me who I love and who I care about and who love me and care about me, they know. Am I worried about what the greater world thinks? Maybe a little bit. I often get asked, well, you shouldn't really be drinking at all because maybe that might come back to you. Maybe it might. I might get run over by a bus tomorrow. So I try and live each day to the best of my ability, to those people around me, to what we do as a business, to give people joy. And we go back to that, because it's supposed to be an upbeat podcast, as you said. And it's about joy. It's about the joy of life, And like I said, when I saw you, we had a massive hug, and it's, and we saw each other by fluke that night. Because I didn't realise you were there, and I know you'd had to hear me speak, which I'm always very thankful when I'm asked to speak, or I offer to speak on behalf of HA, because it's our story. It's all of our stories, and there's many people in the room that night who I knew could relate to that, because so many people came up and said, we relate to how you feel, Charlie, but we're too scared, too nervous to admit that we have the same issues through mental health. And then, I have people like Atul Kachir comes up and gives me the biggest hug in the world, and it's like, you're all right. It's and we just need that. We've forgotten in the world how to love each other, I think, a little bit.
Well, I mean, that comes back to a little bit of the point that we were making all the way back at the beginning about that community spirit, right? And about the fact that actually going out and getting your food and whatever it is that you're buying into your house was a very social experience. But now it could be the most antisocial experience that you've ever had. You don't even need to go to the supermarket to get food delivered to your house, or any other books or equipment or whatever you need. You could literally just stay in. And losing that social connection, that human connection, I think it's a massive part of all of our DNAs. Even if you're an introverted soul, I still think there's an element of everybody needs human connection. Yeah.
I think, we go back to HA and the joy of the charity and what it does. They have their befriending service. So when people have retired out of our industry, as so many of them do, their husbands or wives can pass away. They might not have any children. They might not have any other family members, but they've left the industry that is surrounded by people on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they find themselves retired, sitting in a flat or sitting in their home. And one of the things I love about HA the most is their befriending service, where people get a birthday card, they get a phone call. The joy. Do you remember the old joy of when your phone used to ring, when before the days of mobiles, on the house phone would phone for someone to say, "Hi, I haven't spoken to you for ages," because we didn't have social media, or you received a letter or a card through the post. And however small that might sound to a lot of people, it brings joy. And like you're saying, everything can be delivered to your house nowadays. So people don't always necessarily need to go out. They don't need to see people in the world, or they might be too frail. So, imagine if you're in your 80s and you don't get to see anyone from day to day, but all of a sudden this card comes through, signed off from Hospitality Action. It just says, thinking of you on your birthday, or a phone call to make sure you're all right. And I just think those little things from days of old are the most magical, because we live in such a fast action pace of life, and we forget about people too quickly. We forget about other human souls. We're so engrossed in what we're doing every day, and wanting to produce the best food, or it just, life encompasses us so quickly that we don't have time to remember those people who might not be in such a fortunate place to be. And even that bit, the We've Got You story relates back to those who are retired from our industry, that you might be out of it, but you're not forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because it's a charity, we've still got you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your role, Charlie, with Hospitality Action? What are you doing with them?
Well, I was lucky enough to be the first ambassador. When we did a dinner at Holcombe, we launched HA in Norfolk, in the Eastern Regions, in 2017, with my great mate Alan Miller, and who was at the time head of development for events up at Holcombe Estate. But it's one of the, do you know what? One of the biggest things that so I just gone off on a tangent very quickly. And Al was a great mate, one of my best friend in the whole wide world. And sadly, through lockdown, he sadly passed away through a heart attack. Both the same age, 2 weeks apart on our birthdays, same age. And he's a great supporter of HA, as Holcombe Estate are. Another one of the biggest things in my wanting to be alive, wanting to be joyful, because Al he loved life, loved it to absolute best anyone ever could. And that was also another big thing that I used to put in my head, and I still keep into my head this day, just to make sure I keep grounded and even, and don't let those thoughts sneak back in. Mills wouldn't want me to do what I did, because he loved life. And I find now I think of him and I look at him and I think that'd be really disrespectful to someone who, and trust me, on some days over the past couple of years, I've slumped back into that darkness a little bit. Thought I'd love to be with you, mate, but that'd be so utterly disrespectful to Mills, because I'd then live for the next 100 years with him banging on at me every day, or how stupid it was to do that act. So it's, losing my best mate also helped me not to ever want to go down that dark path again. And HA, to me, my role in HA is to talk honestly and openly about my battles with suicide and addiction, foremost and uttermost, because that's the part of our journey that we have to start with. And my biggest role in HA is to share thanks, to share their story, to share their We've Got You story, to share the fact that there's amazing things that happen. But, people like Craig Prentice, Walk for Wellbeing, who you know very well.
Yeah.
To raise 100 grand on a Sunday with everyone walking for HA, it's just amazing. And that 100 grand goes so far just to help so many different strangers who none of us know. And it's like the boys who are rowing, who will leave the Canary Islands in 10 days' time. Chris and Robbie, who are rowing the Atlantic. Who in their right mind would want to row in oceans of 20-foot waves?
Yeah.
In a small, confined boat?
Yes, indeed. And I was lucky enough to have them on for a catch-up, which will be aired at some point over the next couple of weeks. But as of when this goes out, it's probably been aired already. And they gave me a little tour of the boat through the camera on their phones. And it's a bit cozy, that's for sure. So yeah, you're absolutely right though. But I think this is the thing is that, and they're also another case in point. I know they're doing that because they needed hospitality action through COVID, when there was a lot of darkness in a lot of people's lives at that time. So from their perspective, that they just feel like they're paying that back, And so I think every one of us probably has a responsibility to then pay it forward, because if you are lucky enough, as you say, to not be facing the demons that you faced in your own story, or have your own battles against whatever it might be, financial issues, the cost of living crisis, whatever it might be. If you're lucky enough to not be in a position where these things are dominating your life on a day-to-day basis, then you need to pay it forward. You've got to, because I think there's another wonderful charity, Only a Pavement Away. We're only a couple of steps away from something going horribly wrong. It doesn't matter how successful you are, and how you gauge success is like plucking something out of the sky in any case. But so, yeah, the message that I would send is that listen to Charlie's story, listen to all the other stories that are out there as well. Take power from that. If you are feeling anything that's resembling what you have felt, then reach out to Hospitality Action. If you're not, then reach out to Hospitality Action and see how you can help.
Very much so. When we met in London and you heard me speak, that was the first time ever publicly, and it was about saying thank you. Because so many times in our life we're helped. We're helped by so many different people, and as soon as we feel better and we feel back on track, we forget that who helped us get to that place.
Yeah,
whoever it might be. But in very small token, for me, being on stage in front of 450 people, and the peers of our industry and people I so admire, and strangers alike, it was a very small but very significant part of me, because I wanted Mark and the team to know. Me and Mark often talk about how thankful I am to HA, but how do you really thank a charity that saved your life?
Yeah.
How do you? For me, how do I thank them? I thank them by living and talking about HA as and when I can, not to throw it down to people's necks, because we want people to understand the benefit of HA, and what they do in all their different, from emergency grant funds and to the boys rowing across the Atlantic, to raise 250 grand in the middle of possibly the worst season in the world. And from Craig, who does Walk for Wellbeing, and you doing the podcast and your support of HA. It's about community, and you go back to that all the time. It's the joy of friendship. For me, if I can sum up for my part, it's the joy of friendship, with HA at the core of all we do. But then with us tightly around the peripherals, because we don't want a little campfire, we don't want a little few sticks on our fire that it just glows and people just walk past. We want our flame to be up there, so people see it, and they see the people who are supporting it, because for whatever reasons, because it's been our benefit, it's because people have faith in HA, but more so because we're supposed to all be friends, and to encompass friendship, it's about love of each other, love of each company, and understanding. And when times get a little bit tough, not going, well, I haven't got 5 minutes to phone him today, I'll do it tomorrow. Then you forget about it again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the joy of friendship for me, Phil. The joy of being able to share that. But like I said, it has to be spoken. We have to talk about the darkness to be able to walk through the lightness.
No, I completely agree. I think that the power in your story is phenomenal, and I'll be forever grateful for you to sharing it with us on this platform. If people want to reach out to you, Charlie, to talk to you about this, to talk to about anything that might be relevant to them, that they feel that you might be able to help them with, what's the best method of them to get in contact with you?
Through my Instagram, Hodson and Co. Yeah, absolutely. They can get it from our Instagram account, or through you. Please feel free. And obviously, with HA, if you know someone that's really suffering at the moment, or they need advice financially, personally, work, HR, go to HA, look at what we do as a charity. I never thought for one instance it would be part of my saving grace 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, here I am, full of joy, which I am.
Yeah.
You know, it's joyful. It's how like go back to that. How do you ever contemplate saying thank you for someone who saved your life?
I think you nailed it when you said live and live happily. And if you can't live happily, then find somebody that can help you live happily. And Hospitality Action are definitely those peeps.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, it's simple, mate. And as we always say, Phil, our promise is we've got you.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, thank you so much. I massively appreciate you taking the time and being so open and honest about your journey for this. My hope is that people will take hope themselves from your own inspirational journey and keep doing what you're doing. And I'm going to try, and I'm not going to be able to come and try the smallest restaurant in the world if you're retiring at the end of the year.
I'm sure I'll get to cook for you somewhere, mate.
Yeah, let that be a thing.
Yeah, we'll make that a promise, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. Heard it. It's going in the public domain now, so.
Oh, gosh, I forgot about that. It's really open now.
Excellent. Thank you so much, mate.
Really, thanks ever so much. And on behalf of everyone at Hospitality Action, we've got you.
Good man. Cheers. And there we have it. I'll be forever grateful to Charlie for sharing his story so openly and wish him all the very best in his next chapter. We'll be back next week with the first show of 2024, and what a cracker it is. So until then, have yourself an awesome new year, and we'll see you next week.